it's actually a lot of the time an emotional dependency. It's a mental health issue as well. People are taking drugs or taking illicit substances and trying to use it to fill a hole, usually holes of insecurity, holes of inadequacy. I mean, there's so many of these things. And I wonder, especially because, do you think, what role does our society play in this? Because from when we're young, are we really encouraged to talk about our problems and talk about our feelings and process that and work through it? I say this because, again, on social media, whenever people have some kind of problem or there's an issue, we tend to laugh it off. Me, I suffer past this time. Oh, I suffer past. But these are really deep-seated issues, and that's what we see on the surface. And then underneath, in people's private lives, they start like, man, I actually don't really know what to do with this. Let me just, this cough syrup will help me sleep that time. You know, let me just have a bit more. Oh, I can have it during the day. It's only cough syrup. Children take it. It's not a big deal, and that sort of thing. What would you say to young people who are watching this, who are trying to figure out a way out of this vicious cycle? Because some people also know when they get involved in it and they notice that day in, day out, it's affecting their sleeping, affecting their eating, affecting their thinking. Yeah. People generally do want to come out of it, but they don't know how. They feel a bit helpless. Yeah. So what would you say to these people?
Yeah, the thing is that they need help. You know, I've done a couple of songs, you know, that tells you that firstly, whatever form of depression or pressure you're going through, that drug is not even the way, you understand? Like, don't even start. It's now one chance, you understand? You know, when you enter one chance like this, you will come out beating. They would have, you know, destroyed part of your body and all that. So that's how drug is. So we say, don't even start. Then I mean, talk to someone. If you're going through depression, pressure, talk to someone. And to the society, we should listen to people, reach out to people. You understand? Have that listening ear when somebody wants to talk to you is very important. Let's spread love. You know, it's very important, because that way, when somebody is going through stuff, they can talk to you. They can reach out to you and talk to you. That's one. Then if you are actually already hooked into drugs, you also need to speak to someone. You need to, you know, speak to a professional. Most times, some people DM me and send me DM. I'm not a professional. I just have passion for this thing. You understand? I refer them to a professional, which is very important. That way, you know, they will tell you how to go about it. If you need to go to the rehab, you also need to know. They'll tell you that, because sometimes depending on the kind of drug you're taking and how deep you've gone into it, you may not need, you know, to go to the rehab, because we also have our inner strength to fight some stuff like that. So that's what I think they should do.
Oh, thank you so much for that. For everyone who's just joining in, welcome. We are having a fantastic conversation about better knowledge for better care. It is in commemoration of the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. And this is in support of the Mtn Foundation Anti-Substance Abuse Program. On here with me, I have David Jones. David, fantastic singer, fantastic actor, just all around kind of a cool kid. David is a bit of a cool kid. And I'm Foley Storms, and we've just been sharing stories and issues around drug abuse. I'm talking about it, frankly, and we need to be open about talking about it. And I know that kind of leads in or leads on from what I was saying earlier, where as a society, I think we're coming into a place, especially young people. I love this new generation. Generation Z is so outspoken. They're so fierce. There's so many positive things about young people in this generation. They're bold, they're intelligent, they're dynamic. And I want us as a community to also look at how we can help each other heal and move on from this incredible drug issue. Because the mass population of Nigeria is young people. We are the majority. We are the guys who are in charge. The future we talk about is now, and we are it. So making sure that we are forming ecosystems in our communities, in our homes, in our hangout spots, in our studios, like in the case of David Jones David, where our friends feel safe and not pressured to indulge in certain illicit activity, to abuse their health, and also safe to talk about it if they are worried about getting into that. I think that's really, really important. Now we are going to also invite Nedu on here. Nedu is going to be joining us, as he's also going to be chatting with us a little bit about this and just, you know, kind of sharing his thoughts on drug abuse. So Nedu, when you're ready, please do join us. In the meantime, David,
hi.
Your music has all theirs. Nedu, hi, how you doing?
Hi.
All right. You're looking like a sweet stuff. Excellent. Great to see you. All right. So, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you were listening in on the conversation.
Yeah, I was.
What are your thoughts in general?
Well, David Jones, thank you very much. God bless you for all you do. I mean, I've been someone that, apart from the fact that David Jones is my friend, I love what he does with the songs, you know, trying to sensitize people, make them understand about the abuse of drugs and stuff. And David just mentioned something. We need to follow. You also said something that young kids these days, they are always on social media, and we have to get it right with them. Now, we have to change this notion, change this narrative that, Baba, if I not take some inspiration, not go come. We have to change that thing. A lot of artists, you see them, Baba, this thing, and they give us inspiration. I will not take her. I want to take her so that when I go stage, me, marry anybody, and nobody see anybody. No. We have to change those narratives. If you're not sabi, you're not sabi. That's the truth. You don't have to. You don't need codeine. You don't need weed. You don't need skunk or whatever it is to inspire you to do things that you need to do. We need to start changing the narratives, and people need to come out and speak against these things. For example, let me give you an example. Okay. David, I don't think I've mentioned this thing to you. I know these two friends. One is 18. One is 17. Blessing and Monica. When I used to stay somewhere in VI, we met them, me and my friend, and then they were supposed to stay over at our house because where they were staying in the estate where I was, they chased them out. I was like, come and stay. Don't worry, you can stay in my parlor, no problem. You guys can sleep there. You're not gonna believe, say, when they entered around 8 p.m. Yeah, 8 p.m. there, about 9 p.m. they said they wanted to go out to Lekki. I'm like, no problem, you can go to Lekki. They came back around 4 a.m. the next day in the morning. When they came back, when I was about leaving for office in the morning, I saw them, they were like dead. They were like dead. I was like tapping, hey. They were dead. Like, let me just put it dead. And then I came back from work around 11:30, 12. They were already awake then. I was like, how far? I was calling you guys in the morning. Do you know what they said? We don't off that time. We don't off. Wow. I'm like, off? How do you mean? So we don't do on. In a nutshell, they cannot sleep without taking codeine. They cannot eat without taking weed. That's the sad part of everything. And then the question is, you are 18, you are 17. How did you get to this point where you are an addict already? You cannot sleep without codeine. You cannot eat without having some drugs of weed. Like, how did it get here? So I'm very, very happy that we're doing this and talking to these young people, sensitizing them, making them understand that, forget it. Drug not be the best way to go. Follow. I remember you were saying about a video of a girl that you saw on social media. I saw it too. She's not here. I think an American or something. You could see the stage from one stage to the other, from one stage to the other, from one stage to the other.
I posted
it eats you up. There was one video David posted, or I saw it somewhere. David was you that posted the video where one lady was crying at the hospital bed of her daughter, begging everybody, please don't take drugs. Please don't take drugs. This is what drugs does to you. The daughter later died. See, I don't know how much to, talk about this thing for people to understand that taking drugs is, sometimes people ask me, they do this way, they do like this. Let me say, they take. I don't take anything. I don't have to be who I am. I don't have to be taking weed. I don't have to smoke cigarettes. I don't have to be high on some substance for me to be productive or be do what I need to do to be able to do what I need to do. Anyways, that's what I have to say for now. We need to desensitize and make people understand that this is not the way to go. And I'm not gonna lie, give you, our entertainers need to speak out more and make people understand that if you have inspiration, you have inspiration. You don't need to take weed. And the people, the entertainers that these young kids follow these days, they celebrate taking this. And guess what? These guys, they have followers. They have mad followership.
Huge followings. Yeah.
They have huge followings. And if the people following you see you that you do these things all the time, then go take and say, "No, I'm not happy about that guy do this." Look,
that's true.
Our entertainers need to understand that people look up to them. But then again, if you mention, they say, "I tell them, made them look up to me."
That's true. Speaking of, let's see if we can get an entertainer up here with us as well. And Praise in the background somewhere. Praise, can you come in and join this conversation? Let's have this chat. But yeah, very serious things. Wendy, thank you so much for sharing that with us. As Praise loads, there he is. Praise, how you doing?
Hi, what's good? How you doing? Hi, David. Can you hear me?
So good. Look at them, all these fine men, beard gang. It's so nice. I mean, just so that I can just say I was in this kind of cool group. Everybody just talk. Let's snap a quick photo. Please, those involved.
We feel blessed to be around you.
You are correct. You are actually. You really are. Okay, so let's just take a quick moment and take this photo. And then I know that Praise and David, you have like a performance for us, which I'm very excited about. Look at Praise. Why are you opening your eye? The microphone's in front of you. Stop pretending, my friend. I'm not afraid of you. Please, let's pose for this picture. Thank you so much, everyone. Real quick.
All right.
I'm going to believe that the picture has been taken. So we're going to move on. Also, for those of you who are out there watching, do feel free to send us any comments. We do have just a few minutes left before we move into the main session. And I will be handing over to JJ or Modula. So please drop any comments for us or any questions in the comment box in the chat room, and we can take that over. So Praise, how are you feeling about the conversation and everything we've been talking about?
Trust me, it's a conversation that we need to have and we need to hammer each and every day. Because I mean, we see a lot of young acts who believe that to put up a jam that is a vibe, because I mean that's what they always call it. Like I want to drop vibe, I want to record vibe. They feel like I need to be on some influence, I need to be slow, I need to take some things for me to be able to record some kind of song that we hit out. Like, contrary to that belief, it's false, because the examples of musicians who have gone that route, and it's obvious that it ended in the wrong way. And like, I use myself as an example most times to people who I come across and talk to. I'm like, as a musician, you don't need to be under influence for you to be inspired. We're creatives. There are things called creative block. It's natural for you to have creative block. Like, there are times where you want to create music or you want to create art, but you can't. It's normal. You don't need to take codeine, you don't need to take tramadol, you don't need to take you don't need smoke for you to be able to be inspired to record something. Yeah, Black Mamba, yeah.
Sorry. There was one I heard someone saying, "Follow, it will shock you." So I saw two guys one early morning. I was coming from the house. I saw them coming out from a club here in VI. And they do how far? And then the other guy was saying, "Baba, you remember what happened yesterday night? Baba, I don't remember." So there's this drug they take. The fun is that it knocks you off, like you don't remember anything. So imagine from that age, your brain keeps going, you keep forgetting and keep forgetting. It gets to the point where
parts of your brain,
damage part of your brain.
Memory is gone. Yeah.
Vital organs in your body are getting destroyed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so guys, let me not stop the musical. So please, music people, please entertain us small. Just give us small serenade. Spice it up for us. Let it not be that we're just talking in love. We would love that.
Let my go first.
And there are a couple of questions that have also come through. So I will take those questions right after this. So I'm going to leave it to these two guys to just entertain us. And I see you are relaxed, ready for the entertainment. Yeah, let's relax.
I
Praise.
Please.
Praise.
Sir.
Praise.
Sir.
Shabi, you know this song, Unyara?
Yeah, Yeah, I know the song, but I don't know the lyrics.
This one. So how do you want it? Do you want to play it and just vibe to it? Is that what you want?
Yeah, just give us a little bit of vibe.
Just play. Yeah, just play.
All right. Nai mekaki mungugada Simon
It's a vibe.
I love the vibe. Stop, people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They do on their lips.
Welcome back.
I love that.
Yo.
Okay, very quickly.
The melodies on that song.
It's dope. So dope. So a couple of the questions we have, let me just take those very quickly before we sign out. We have this one from Lele Balde, who says, is weed a drug? If yes, is the legality spreading across the US and Europe? And how do you control the accessibility of these drugs, especially among young people? Yeah, so I mean, to answer that in short, yes, it is a drug. And don't forget, as we're talking about drug abuse, we're talking about both legal and illegal drugs. So it is not necessarily the drug itself that is a problem, it is the abuse of this substance. That is what we address. So we're not looking at legal versus illegal. We're looking at how this is really affecting people's lives because they're overindulging in whatever substance. Even Panadol, if you take too much of it is drug abuse. You take malaria meds when you don't need it, and there's nothing wrong with you. You just feel like something will happen. That is the abuse of the substance. But yes, I know. Do you guys want to chip in on that?
I mean, you say it all. You say it all.
Actually,
I think so. Let's see. We also have more questions coming in. Somebody else asks this question. Why do we not have serious campaigns in schools and local communities? And why is there little done? Why does it seem that there's only a little bit done and it's concentrated only when it's being used for political purpose? So you guys.
I didn't get that. Please say it again.
Because they're saying, why isn't there more of a campaign in schools against this? And why does it seem that when there is a campaign, it tends to be political? But David Jones, David, you are very involved in campaigns. So just in like a minute, because we've just got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I think it's everyone's duty to, speak against drugs. You understand? For me personally, it's something personal. It's something I don't waste my time looking for if anybody's doing the same thing with me. I just want to make that impact, and I think if everyone does that, it's better for everyone.
Fantastic. All right. Nate, did you have any final words as we come to the end of this?
Well, in addition to what David said, the person that asked the question said most people don't do anything about it when it comes to sensitizing the people about drug abuse, which is why there was one day I told David, I said, Baba, I swear you're supposed to be the face of NDLEA. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now the government needs to do something fast about this. I saw something in the news the other day. The head of NDLEA, I can't remember the guy's name now. I think that is let me see, Mohammed Abdullah. He said something. He said that tramadol abuse is fueling insurgency in the north. You understand? Imagine people taking tramadol, that alone is fueling insurgency in the north. And we're having terrorism issues, bandit issues, name them. I mean, so I think if the government has to do something about it, if individuals has to do something about it, it should not be political. You're not doing it because you want to gain something from the government. You're not doing it because you want to have that political appointment. Do it because you want to impact lives. Do it because you want to add value to people. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, so on that note, guys, we've come to the end of this session. I wish it could go on. There's definitely a lot more we could talk about, but I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, David Jones, David. Thank you, Lady. Thank you, Praise. Handing over now, JJ Omajua is getting ready for the main session, and the conversation does continue. So, guys, please keep it locked right here. JJ, if you are around, I believe that you will sign on in just a second. It'd be great to see you, which would be excellent. And then we think we could move in. Yes, there he is.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing?
Hi, JJ.
Fantastic.
I had a lot of fun listening to everyone. It was very good to hear from the cultural leaders, because there's a lot of assumption that once you're a famous person, entertainment, comedian, actor, you just need some form of drugs to spice it up. So it was a great thing to hear you guys say all of those things. So now we're going to move on to, it's more or less the same conversation, but from a different perspective. I don't know if my guests are around.
I think they are. So
first of all, it should be stated again. Thank you for Lou.
Hi, DAkore.
Hi.
Beautiful.
Hi, DAkore.
Hi, DAkore. Great to see DAkore in the house.
Hey, you doing?
I'm good.
Hello.
Okay, buddy.
Beautiful.
Good to see you, lovely.
So thank you, Praise.
Okay, so
thank
JJ,
over to you. Kolu, Nedu, thank you, everyone. So guys, thank you for joining us. Like Folu already said at the beginning of the last session, today, 26th of June, is the International Day for against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. And also the day aligns with the Mtn Foundation's objective to spearhead a multi-sectoral approach to the fight against substance abuse in Nigeria, especially the unfortunate growing trend amongst persons aged 10 to 25. So we are primarily here to highlight these concerns and, even more important, to proffer solutions to these issues. So on that note, I would like to welcome the chairman of the Mtn Foundation, Prince Julius Adelusi Adetuyi, OFR, MNI, for his welcome address. After that welcome address, we would have a keynote address from the Minister of Youth and Sports, Sunday Dare, and then from there we'll go straight to the panel. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Sounds great.
So do we have the chairman in the house?
So JJ, just to let you know, the publisher of Business Day, Mr. Frank Egbuson, will give a brief introduction, and then we'll go right into
the panel.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
So Mr. Frank Egbuson, please, over to you.
Can somebody please unmute him?
Well, they finally did that. Thank you very much. I hope you're hearing me now. My name is Frank Egbuson. Thanks, JJ, and of course, thank you, Lily, my colleague. This is a great day. I have followed the conversation and just listening to those great guys of Nigeria who are flying the flag. We congratulate all of you. As JJ has already said, this is the International Day Against Substance Abuse, whether it's by way of trafficking or indulging in whichever one. One good thing is we have seen people come to rehabilitation and have made a success of their lives. And it is in this regard that we thank Mtn Foundation for the great work that it's doing to support not only creating awareness, but also to facilitate other things that are required to be done to ensure that Nigerians, whether they be young or the old, don't get engaged in substance abuse, and that those who are fortunately already trapped. Let me welcome, as JJ has done, the chairman of Mtn Foundation, a man that I revere and have followed over many, many years, Prince Julius Adelusi Adelui. I also, of course, would like to thank Odoaya Sanya, who is the executive director of the foundation and has been supporting. Business is very delighted to be partners on a day like this. And we also thank the Honorable Minister who will be represented on this webinar by Mr. Tunde Aina, who is the Assistant Director for Special Duties in the Ministry of Youth and Sports. My role this afternoon is just to welcome everyone, including our panelists and, of course, a large audience out there waiting to hear our panelists. We think we have a brilliant array of speakers and panelists, and of course, moderated by our good friend, JJ Omojoa. I think at this point, permit me now to not only introduce, but also to invite the chairman of Mtn Foundation, Prince Julius Adelui, to please make his welcome remark. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The Prince has been muted. I hope, okay, yeah. You're good to go, sir.
Thank you very much, Frank. Long time no see.
Exactly, sir.
I feel good with the kind of partners that the foundation has put together to make this event happen. And I also happened to have just chance on the tail end of the program just before this one. And with the kind of young people I saw interfacing, there's a lot of hope for this country. All we need to do is put it together. And this can be a game changer. I'm just simply here as chairman of the foundation to welcome all of you who are in this assembly of participants and stakeholders. Let me recognize the Honorable Minister of Youth, as I can see represented here by Mr. Aina. Let me also recognize the board members of both the MTN and the Mtn Foundation, and the very hardworking management of the Mtn Foundation, who have actually put this together. I also want to appreciate the stakeholders, as well as those who are partnering with us today, Business Day, as well as MTE Base, as well as all of you, ladies and gentlemen. The Mtn Foundation project, named ASAP, is at the very center of all this. And the effort we are making really is to make sure that this day does not go by without our commemorating it fittingly. Remember, there may be other events also addressing the issues today, but this is the one that has brought together on a very multi-sector, multi-stakeholder basis, very many people. We welcome all of you. And we are happy that in Nigeria at last, we're beginning to get together the various views, the various active centers to come as a united whole, to collaborate, to fight this menace of substance abuse. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe that some people, when they hear ASAP, think it's as soon as possible. Yeah. But ASAP in this case is Anti-Substance Abuse Program, or of the Mtn Foundation. And because of the urgency of the subject matter, we want ASAP to succeed ASAP. So it's an ASAP approach. We believe that the roadmap for ASAP is to achieve a Nigeria ultimately free of substance abuse. And we started this in 2018. And we are very happy that a whole lot of people have come to collaborate with us in a very meaningful and enduring way. We thank all of such persons, institutions that may be here. As I heard the young people say, they have got it, they are spot on. And they are saying that this menace, if we do not do something about it, can rise up to emergency levels. Now, that's not the kind of wahala we want at this stage now, especially with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. So something has to be done quickly, and that's why in our togetherness today, we should be able to stimulate wider discussion, deeper discourse, in order to draw attention, greater attention to the notice of all relevant individuals, relevant institutions, corporate bodies, so that we can combat this menace. The theme has been very well chosen: better knowledge for better care, which is good. We must not be tired of bringing to the attention of people the very deleterious effect of substance abuse anywhere and everywhere, especially in our nation, Nigeria, to individuals, to families, and to communities. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is our belief in the foundation that it has become necessary for us to be able to have a slogan that says it is easier to keep off drugs than to get off drugs. So we must talk to the younger generation, even the older generation, because some older generation people are also very much into it and they get hooked. So we must be able to say, keep off drugs, because it's more difficult to get off when you are already hooked. It is the duty of all of us here to come together to build a healthier and cleaner community for Nigerians. And this can be done only by having an alliance against drug abuse. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is the considered view of the Mtn Foundation Board and management that if we work together, we can achieve a drug and substance abuse-free nation sooner than later. I thank you for listening to me. I'm going to sit down here and learn, especially from the younger generation who have tremendously impressed me. Thank you.
Please unmute the chairman.
Prince Julius Adelusi Adeluyi, OFR, MNI, Chairman, MTN Nigeria Foundation. Thank you so very much. We thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports has kindly consented to giving us a keynote address at the beginning of this webinar, and that message will be delivered by Mr. Tunde Aino, who is the Assistant Director for Special Duties in the Ministry. Mr. Aino.
Am I on? Thank you very much, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
you are, sir.
Okay, a short point of correction. I am Director of Special Duties, not Assistant Director.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll be presenting the keynote address of my honorable minister, who is unavoidably absent because he has to be engaged in another national assignment at this moment. So here goes his address. Please allow me to stand on the existing, already established protocol. So, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be the keynote speaker for this anti-substance abuse webinar session, which is part of the events lined up to commemorate the International Day Against Drug Abuse. This program is quite a pertinent one, coming at a time when substance abuse, especially amongst the youth population, has become a matter of international concern, and for the recognition of the overarching importance of mental health in managing the crisis. I therefore sincerely congratulate the organizers as well as their sponsors for putting together this fitting event. According to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make contributions to his or her community. This WH definition shows that, contrary to many misconceptions, mental health goes beyond the absence of mental disorders or disabilities. Being able to make positive contribution to society counts as an integral part of mental well-being. So drug abuse may then be described as the persistent or excessive self-administration or use of licit or illicit drugs in amounts other than as prescribed or intended, or the use of such drugs by methods which are harmful to the individual or others. Psychosomatic drugs such as cannabis, alcohol, ecstasy, heroin, etc., have the ability to affect mood and alter perception. They can arouse certain moods and dampen others, and continued or excessive use can sometimes be fatal, but more often leads to mental health challenges such as mood disorders, psychotic disorders, or some other form of anxiety disorders. Initially, the connection between mental health and drug abuse may seem benign. You just pop a few pills to get going, it works. And because it works, next time the temptation is great to pop again and again and again, until physical tolerance of the abused substance becomes a case of dependency. In fact, experts agree that drug abuse may trigger mental ill health or sharply increase symptoms of existing ones. It is an undisputed fact that a society that allows its youth to indulge in the very costly habit of drug abuse will invariably rob such youth of the glorious opportunity of being able to make the expected positive contribution to society. Therefore, the preservation and restoration of mental health is crucial for the individual as well as the society at large. If the destructive impact of drug abuse on individual and societal life is obvious, the question then arises, why do people, the youth inclusive, get into the habit of abusing drugs at all? There are a number of risk factors for drug abuse, including, but not limited to the following: biological or hereditary factors, continuous social pressure or unmet societal expectation, heavy debt burden or economic pressure, death of a loved one, job loss, rape or sex abuse, especially of minors, academic pressure or failure, domestic problems or violence, including partner infidelity, work-related stress, peer pressure, especially on adolescents. In fact, it's been established that not fewer than 1 in 5 Nigerians have abused drugs at one time or other. People who find themselves under any of the foregoing pressure can easily fall into the temptation of trying a quick fix through self-medication rather than seeking professional help. For instance, depressed patients may be tempted to try stimulants like marijuana. Patients with insomnia or panic attack might resort to Valium without proper prescription. Adolescents with societal or anxiety sometimes imbibe alcohol to limit inhibitions and to feel more comfortable in social situations, while those with low energy could be wrongly urged to give cocaine or crystal meth a try, and so forth. Problems often arise from such self-help practices because most of these substances are addictive, ultimately leading to dependency or junkie syndrome. Increasing youth involvement in substance abuse is very worrisome and is a major threat to national development, family stability, and social security, from which they need to be protected. Drug abuse among Nigerian youth, if not tackled headlong, can easily become a scourge on the overall sustainable development of our nation. Unfortunately, it has damaged many youth and destroyed their future. Remember the BBC documentary on the abuse of codeine in Nigeria that made the federal government to ban the drug? Many Nigerian youth soon turned to tramadol and other substances. So the ban has not really achieved the intended effect. It's a major national mental health challenge and social problem. But what can we do? The development of mental well-being as an ally against drug abuse requires a multi-pronged approach. We need to have a good appreciation of the risk factors associated with substance abuse, and spreading the word through prevention programs has become a matter of life or death. In my humble opinion, the best approaches should include: 1, parental monitoring in family situations. This should encompass activities like discussing reasons for using drugs and the dangers associated with it, listening to your adolescents' views on the issue, discussing ways to resist peer pressure, etc. 2, developing school drug abuse prevention programs in both primary and secondary schools. This should form a part of school curriculum so that the awareness may become really internalized. 3, using media messages as a means of reaching the larger community. This should include the use of songs, plays, movies, TV programs, and various social media. 4, advocating good mental health habits to remain on the front burner of faith-based organizations and other NGOs. 5, eliminating the pervasive culture of silence by openly discussing all aspects of mental health and drug abuse, both licit and illicit drugs. 6, organizing age as well as gender-specific specialized programs in local communities, and developing and sponsoring sporting activities as well as other programs that allow the youth to channel their energy into positive engagement, vocational skills acquisition, etc. There is no gainsaying the fact that a sound mental health development will serve as a bulwark against the menace of drug abuse. It is an existential requirement that all hands must be on deck towards ensuring that the mental health of the future leaders is not compromised by drug abuse. The family, the school, churches, mosques, and the general community all have a role to play in this anti-drug abuse advocacy through regular public sensitization and enlightenment. It is only then that we can look into the future with hope, in the assurance that our development of robust mental health infrastructure will be a formidable ally in our fight against drug abuse at all levels. I will stop here and allow other participants. I will still be on to take any questions or participate in further discussions. I thank you very much sincerely for your attention. Thank you.
Mr. Aina, we thank you profusely. Mr. Aina is Director for Special Duties in the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports, and he has just presented the keynote address by the Honorable Minister. Now, I will get out of the way, but before I do that, let me invite our moderator, JJ Omojua, who will lead the following conversation.
Thank you very much, Frank. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to collaborate with Business Day and your team. I always look forward to it. I'd also like to thank other partners for this project, the Mtn Foundation, the NetNG, MTV Base, Business Day, of course. I think that's just about it. But I'd like to also introduce the panelists who have been very, very patient and listening through the presentations, and for some of us, even for the previous conversation that Folu Storms had with some of our cultural leaders. So on the panel today, we have Oduayo Soya, the Executive Secretary of Mtn Foundation. We have Bada Akintunde Johnson, he's the Country Manager for Viacom CBS Networks Africa. We have an expert on the conversation, specifically Dr. Yewande Oshodi, who is a psychiatrist. We have Oliver Stolper, is the country representative for the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. We have Nollywood veteran, DAkore Egbuson Akonde. Of course, no gainsaying, no, she needs little or no introduction. We're privileged to also have another Nollywood veteran, Ini Edo. I think this is beautiful because we have a strong team that's cut across every perspective of the conversation, because again, we also have Ade Dokun, Ade Deji, who is the DG CADAM. CADAM is Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministry. We have, conversations like this often miss it from the point of not bringing those that are like at the forefront of the experiences. In this case, the people living with substance use disorder. I understand that we're not supposed to say drug addicts, and I think that's a good idea, because if people that live with substance use disorder and don't self-identify themselves as drug addicts, that's a very good, useful step towards doing the right thing for themselves. So we have someone who's recovered, who has a useful experience to give to us on that. That's Sandra Mim. I choose to introduce her as Sandra Mim, so she would retain some form of anonymity. So on that note, I'm quite excited. We're going to have views from cultural leaders. We're going to have views from experts. We're going to have views from advocates, people like Mtn Foundation supporting the work against drug abuse in Nigeria. And I'll just go right into the conversation because time is not on our side. I'd start with you, Oduayo. I'd like to know specifically, why is MTN ASAP focused on youth and this issue in specific terms?
Thank you very much, JJ Omojua, for that question. And I welcome everybody again to this session. Why is MTN, focused on the youth and ASAP? At MTN, we believe that, our success as a business is closely tied to the well-being of, the communities that we operate in. Now, driving it home and bringing it within the Nigerian context, we recognize and we realize as a business that we're a young nation, a nation of young people, where, about 70% of the population are young people under the age of 24. And so it's very important for us in MTN to focus on this demography of our population, because really to build a nation, to build a business, you need to focus on the people. And so for us, having launched the ASAP program last year, we see that, the drug menace is a big issue in our country. And yes, it's receiving attention, but we would like it to receive more attention. And so that's why, like the chairman said, the ASAP program, was launched. And it might interest you again that the UNODC report for 2019, stated that we have 14.3 million Nigerians as drug users. And so for us at MTN, we're committed to Project Nigeria. We're committed to building, this nation because we see the potentials in the young people of Nigeria. And that is why, we have launched the ASAP program, which is, like has been said, multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral in approach. So that's the reason why MTN is backing this.
Thank you very much, Odunayo. That's a very useful perspective. Interesting that you mentioned the UNODC's research, which is where I'd like to bring Oliver Stolper in to give us an idea into, they had a survey on drug use in Nigeria. Like what were the specific things they found? And is there a way forward, that's a way for us to fix these issues? Oliver.
Thank you very much. And allow me to stand on the existing protocol. It's a great pleasure to address you on that specific question. And you're absolutely right. We did a drug use survey in 2018, published in early 2019, and it found, as it was already stated, about 14 million, a little bit more than 14 million people in Nigeria, adults in Nigeria, because it's basically, we only interviewed 15 and above in age, were using drugs at least once during the preceding year. We also found that about 3 million people are living at that or were living at that stage already with a drug use disorder. So that means they need treatment in order to essentially tackle these issues. More recently, we've conducted a poll together with our colleagues at UNICEF, and we found a really disturbing trend, which seems, because we were very interested in how COVID-19 was impacting on drug use and whether it was impacting. And we found that, not necessarily to our surprise, but confirming our fears, that it appears that drug use may even spread further due to COVID-19 and its socio-economic consequences. Now, this poll found that among the 90,000 youth that responded to the poll, so it was not necessarily a representative sample of the whole Nigerian population, but specifically of young people, 51% of them confirmed that they knew somebody who had used drugs during the past 12 months. So more than half, basically, of all the youth living in Nigeria seem to be exposed to this experience of knowing at least someone who uses drugs. We also had half of the respondents who said that drug use had gotten worse since the event of COVID-19, and only 30% felt that it had either stayed the same or it had actually decreased. And that also dovetails essentially what we're observing at international level and what we have been observing in the context of other crises. In the financial crisis or subsequent to the financial crisis in 2008, we saw quite a number of trends in terms of more drug use. We saw a greater drug use, especially amongst poor people, essentially as a coping mechanism. And we saw a trend towards more risky types of drug use, so in particular injecting drug use. So overall, we are looking with quite some concern forward, also because we fear that at the same time, the budgets that are going to be made available by governments to provide for treatment, for prevention programs. We heard about the importance of school-based prevention, which we've been working quite a bit with Nigeria on, is going to be reducing. And that means at a stage when actually all the indicators are pushing, if anything, people more likely towards drug use, we're actually spending less on helping them to deal with this issue. So definitely at the moment, not many reasons to be optimistic, even though I have one, but I leave that for later.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Hopefully the next speaker will give us some form of optimism. I think too many times we hear drugs. It's good to have a perspective of the different kinds of drugs, like what are depressants, what are stimulants, what's cannabis, what's hallucinogens, and the likes. And I think that's why we have Dr. Yewande Oshodi in the house. And hope that she
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Omojua. I'd like to stand on existing protocol and thank the organizers of this webinar. I think it's one of those conversations we just really have to keep having, because the issues are there, the figures are there, and they are of concern to us, particularly a nation like ours that has such a huge youth bulge, you know, in our demographics. So talking about what is what when we think about substances of abuse, you know, just to try and simplify the terms, you know, when you hear stimulants, you know, as the name implies, you know, it's something that stimulates, you know, it almost fastens and makes the messages from the brain to the rest of the body move faster. That's what stimulants do. It activates, you know, the brain function and makes the individual a lot more alert and excitable. And there are a few, you know, that we do have a wide range of substances of abuse, and they fall into different categories. And these are the categories that you're asking for clarification, you know, around. Stimulants would include things like the caffeine that we all take, you know, from time to time. Though it's socially acceptable, they're more socially utilized, you know, substances. And when you do use them in mild ranges, that's okay. But when you go to other things like the cocaine or, you know, methamphetamines, these are stimulants that can actually have very, very high, you know, addictive potential. And of course, the mental health effects that, you know, go with that. You know, these individuals can become very agitated and aggressive under the influence of these substances. Then you have the other category of substances called the depressants. As the name implies also, it sort of like depresses, you know, the function of that central nervous system. It slows down that functioning, it slows down the response, and by extension, you can imagine it causes a calming, a soothing, a relaxing, you know, effect on the individual that is using it. And understanding this will help us to also understand why certain people will reach out to certain substances under certain conditions. Alcohol will fall under the group of depressants, you know, benzodiazepines. These are Valiums and, you know, a lot of benzos that are oftentimes, unfortunately, people do get over the counter, which they shouldn't, you know, would fall in that category. The opioids, that's our codeine, you know, heroin, and they're all in the same category. We call those opioids. They have that calming, depressant, you know, effects. And you find individuals that are a bit anxious, worried. These are substances that may be easy substances to reach to, and people will take them to get the benefits from them. And then we have those that we call the hallucinogens. As the name implies also, these are substances that provoke alteration of perception, almost like substances that make the individual hallucinate, you know, to certain degrees. They hear things that are not there, they see things that are not there, and of course these can influence, you know, their behavior. You have things like the LSD and ketamine. But the interesting thing about a substance like cannabis is that cannabis almost serves the purpose on all the three categories that I've just described. At times, it can actually serve as a stimulant, make certain people under the influence become very agitated and, you know, active and alert. And some other persons, it makes them calm and sleep, improves their appetite, and, you know, they say, it just makes me calm. They call it that they're jonesing, you know, with the substance. Then you have those that under the influence of cannabis actually begin to have hallucinatory experiences where they see things that are not there and, you know, have conversations with unseen persons. So if it's of any, I hope it's of some value, just thinking around the individuals that either we know or people that are prone to this for whatever vulnerabilities that they're sitting with. This may explain why certain people reach for certain substances. Let me just stop there so I don't make it too complicated. I hope it's clear enough.
Thank you.
You know, yes, thank you very much.
Definitely is. DAkore, I'll be coming to you right now. Some experts have said that the family is the primary agent for tackling substance abuse, especially amongst young people. Do you think parents play a role in enabling substance abuse within the household? And is there a possibility that they may also be doing this without being aware that they're doing it? Can you please unmute her? Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
awesome. Hi, JJ.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm standing on all existing protocols. For me, I believe that the family has a very huge role to play because the environment of where you are, of where you grow up, you know, tends to shape how you turn out in life. And if parents are vigilant, if they are aware of what to look out for, then they can better monitor their kids. And the kind of communication as well that, the communication styles that you learn as a child. Are you able to talk to your parents if someone is bullying you in school? You know, what kind of relationship do you have with your parents where you can talk about things that are happening in school? But the way that the average Nigerian child has been raised has been to fear their parents and not be able to have those very necessary interactions that would be the beginning of trying to sort it out, you know? So I think a lot of education has to occur within the family unit. Sensitization, of course, has been mentioned, and it's very key. I think we can use a lot of, film and music and, art education and all of these things to also keep children occupied, so that there's not a question of, oh, I was bored and I didn't have anything to do, so there's also that aspect. So yeah, I think the family is very, very key in a very centralized point, very sensitive point, and if parents are not aware of what they have to do, then they'll miss those cues and a lot of chaos will ensue. So sensitization is key, I believe, using film, using music, using visual arts, and just talking about it on the radio, like really let people be aware that these are signs to look out for. Then another thing is our mental health system is pretty much non-existent in Nigeria. Let's be, there's nothing for, it's either you're mad and they take you to Yaba, but there are no psychology. I mean, we have psychologists, but there's no mental health system to support the work. And then even when you do choose to go and see someone, you're perceived a certain way, you're stigmatized. Oh, she's going to see a shrink. Ooh, she's going crazy. So that demonization of even people who are going through this, drug abuse is also there. So it's a very trapped system, that we're operating in. And Nigeria is a very harsh environment to grow up and to live in, so economically as well, people are struggling. And with COVID-19 and all of that pressure, added, it's a pressure cooker, it's a ticking time bomb, so we have to do a lot. And then unfortunately, what Mr. Oliver mentioned, that the funding is even going to be less, it just broke my heart because I'm like, wow, this is when we need it, So yeah, it's a very dire picture, but I think if parents of today really unlearn the communication styles that they probably inherited from their parents. When you know better, you do better. So if you're able to, just adjust and say, okay, I had a very distant father, for instance, then try to be a more present father now. Try to be more open, try to, bring your kids close. Like I have 2 daughters. Of course, there's an added, as a female, there's even an added, stigma So I have to make sure that I'm close enough to them to know who in their class is making them feel some type of way, or, you know, how their teacher speaks to them and how it makes them respond. And you have to be very present, especially with all the assault on the system, you know. So yeah, I think it's very key that we figure out how to handle all of these issues, because it's a lot, it's heavy. You know, it's really heavy. And I just try to put myself in the shoes of a young person growing up in Nigeria today with how difficult things are. You know, I grew up through that, you know, and somehow by the grace of God was able to navigate. Yeah, you wouldn't believe the stuff that's happening. You're like, I remember one time when things were really bad, like tight, I was in university. And someone actually came up to me and said, you know, because I could travel, by that time I could travel and stuff. So he says, oh, you know, would you want to carry some drugs, you know, and you get paid when you get there. This is me. This is 21-year-old me. And this happened. It was in my environment. But because of home training and upbringing and the fear of God that was instilled in me by my parents, I didn't have to run home to ask my mom what to say to the guy. I just knew that, that one no go happen. No worry. Because he knew that I was at a point that I really needed some money, you know, for school and stuff. And that's how you catch that. So that's the other thing, drug trafficking. That's another side of it. But it's, if you don't have parental love and guidance from home, when you go out, when those situations come to you, you will not be able to handle it. And you will do that, and your life will just spiral out of control.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
one bad decision.
Thank you very much. And I think that maybe for those that get to miss it, we have an advantage in having you, Iniedo, also Bada. We had Praise and some other guys. They do people that like influence millions of people all over the world, not just Nigerians, through Nollywood, through content on Instagram, because we were also talking about sensitization, and I think this is going to be important. I'd like to come to someone who actually works with people living with substance use disorder, and that's Dokun. I don't know if Dokun is still on the platform. I'd like to know, for instance, like, what's the most abused drugs according to the work he's done, apart from the research that the likes of Oliver have done with UNODC, and why do you think, Dokun, that these drugs are the ones that are being opted for, and how accessible are these drugs? That's
thank you. Okay, thank you very much, JJ. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The most used drug, even in Nigeria and even accepted globally, is cannabis. About 11 million people of the documented UNODC use cannabis. Is the most used drugs in Nigeria. And I can tell you, as you said, there is hardly any drug available anywhere else in the world that is not available in Nigeria, is accessible. You know, the challenge that we're having today is that people use that, they use pharmacological drugs as well, that are used for different medical benefits, but because of some things they think they get from it, they use it, like tramadol, like codeine, as we all know, and then there's stuff like amphetamine, crystal meth, they call it ice, and all kinds of drugs. Look, I can tell you that lately you heard about Colorado, and everybody knows that Colorado is just synthetic marijuana. And some of these things are just chemicals mixed together. I know there's a gentleman who sang this, so it's a science student. People now sit down, they concoct their own drug, particularly this COVID season. Because of the element, they can't go out, you can't go get by. So they stay at home and they can concoct whatever they want. Someone told me, one of the people that we were rehabilitated, he said he was in hospital for treatment and they couldn't have facility to other, but they concocted that right in the hospital. They got dongoyaro, and soaked it in methylated spirit. And I said, where did you get methylated? They got the methylated spirit from the rehab center, and they were using it. So you see, the thing is, these drugs are readily available and they're cheap. The people who sell them are making it cheap for people to get. And there was one, I'm not sure that you guys saw something a while ago about a gentleman who got beverage and cut the tip off, and he put together marijuana and then with codeine, and then mix them up and with tramadol into powder and mix it up with the beverage and mixed it and seal up the edge of the beverage sachet with iron. And these things are sold to students, 200 naira there and there, you see. And so it's so easy to get this drug. And I'm happy that today what we're talking about is better knowledge for better care. Somebody was talking about parents. If parents don't even know about these things, they can't understand why they children. Some children do the drugs right in the home. I mean, if a child says he got codeine syrup for cough, and then you just see 5 bottles or things like that, and he's using it at home, and father never has any clue that he's doing it, or he mix it with something like a non-alcoholic beverage like with Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola or La Casera, and he's drinking in the sitting room as if he's drinking Coca-Cola. Is the father going to say anything that you can't drink Coca-Cola in my house? But one thing I say to parents is, if anyone is drinking any of those drinks and it's taking more than 15 minutes, it is not the regular drink. So I'm so thrilled that Mtn is talking about the theme for this year is better knowledge. And I'm glad that the influencers are here. Until we have a situation where there's a collaborative work, musicians, people in theater and other, we will not get anything to get to these young people. I remember many years ago, there's a lady called Lola Macaulay, Lola Fanikaude. She did a documentary called Mind Bending. I wish we could get that film back. And it went on for a series, I think for about 2 quarters or something. We need to talk about drugs every day, either in the church or the mosque or the school, everywhere, on TV, but in a way that is not making people fantasize and want to take it. Some of the advice we allow cause the problem.
True.
And role modeling is poor. When a father smokes and he tells his son not to smoke, what is it? The children will say, I hear what you do. I don't hear what you say. And I know some people come to us and they will say to me, their parents send them to go and buy. My uncle introduced me to it. I know a particular case, I don't want to go into that here. It was the uncle and undergraduate who introduced him to marijuana. And when the guy left, and this child was the only son, he would then go and buy and call his friends, his age mate. It was 11. In our next day, he would call his friends and they will have a drug party. Honestly, there's no better time to begin to talk about this thing than now. We see it every day. I'm scared because the age of use is coming down. We are having 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-olds. So it's so important that we begin to do something about it.
And that's why I'm excited that Mtn Foundation, Business Day, MTV Base, and the Net NG came together to organize this. Hopefully, this is not going to be just one out of, this actually becomes the norm. We need to have these conversations and provide the platforms to have these conversations. And talking about platforms, Bada by far, I'm coming to you now. There's a lot of talk about how music videos, music glamorize drug abuse. Yesterday, we had a huge, the video of an arrest of a crime syndicate for cyber fraud in the UAE. Also, music videos have and musicians generally have sort of glamorized and validated these crimes. MTV Base is the platform for music videos, not just in Nigeria, but globally. What are you doing as an organization to find a way to control this, de-glamorize these activities, and with respect to this conversation, drug abuse?
Thanks a whole lot, Omojua, and I'll stand on existing protocol, say hi to everyone. Thanks for having me. As a business and as a socially responsible organization, we have standards in place. We have protocols in place to ensure that we play only clean music videos. By clean, I mean music videos that are devoid of portrayals that can negatively influence these young, mostly impressionable people. And you would know from a regulation standpoint also that the NBC, the custodian of the rules and regulations guarding broadcast services in Nigeria, does see to it that practitioners within the broadcasting space adhere to the rules. Usually you'll hear of music videos and audios that have been banned from getting played on radio, from getting played on TV, and you would also hear of imposition of fines ranging from 250,000 naira to 20 million, depending on the severity of the offense or the violation. So on our part, especially an organization that prides itself on the philosophy of helping the predominantly, youth population of Africa reimagine Africa for the rest of the world. Our Africa Reimagine philosophy has been at the forefront of everything we've done in this market. We've tried to, tell the positive sides or the positive stories emanating from Africa to the rest of the world. We have celebrated youth and industry, creativity. Globally, we've ensured that African youth who are shining, the light on our creativity and our enterprise are celebrated on global stages, the BET Awards and the likes. And of course, we also have MTV Sugar, which is the drama series that is going from market to market, sensitizing people towards, social ills and things like this. But having said that, there's the NBC, there's the regulator, there's the role of the independent or the broadcast entities. What you would find, Omojua, is the most impactful phenomenon driving use of substances is the fact that maybe, the MTVs of this world no longer cater to the content consumption needs of the majority of these youth audiences. And what do I mean by that? As much as they watch us on linear TV, as much as they consume our content on digital media platforms, they have access to those individuals that create those music videos and create the music themselves. So what has happened over the last 10, 15 years with the explosion of digital spaces is that those musicians have now become media channels in themselves. So if MTV, for instance, has an average of 1 million viewers on multiple platforms, a Davido or a Wizkid would easily eclipse that by the sheer number of followers that he has on social media. He might have, 15 million people. So even if MTV Base doesn't play his music video because it contains content that, might drive this, he can put those things on YouTube himself, can put those things on his Instagram page, and these people would have direct interaction, with the content regardless. So regulated media does have, set parameters in place to guard against the, exposure of things that drive this sort of behavior. But there is, there are bigger media platforms these days that are not regulated, where these guys readily, as part of their, portrayal of the lifestyle of success, easily show themselves smoking or readily, post pictures and videos of themselves smoking marijuana, excessively consuming alcohol, and you would even have them almost expressly promoting these things. Now, the question then becomes, what do we do in this circumstance? Understand that the fundamental basis which has been touched on is the individual. The guy who sings about the consumption of marijuana is an individual himself who consumes marijuana more often than not. So what he's singing is a reflection of his life. And that guy has emanated from a family where certain, interventions from the parents could have prevented that. Music is one space that has a peculiarity of its practitioners, hitting fame and fortune quite early. The average age of a musician who hits several millions of dollars, and becomes a national star or international star is about 16, 17, where their characters are not even fully formed. And these guys, step into fame with all of the peer pressure, with all of the, association that they naturally would attract. from, I mean, different characters from different walks of life who maybe already are into substance abuse. The pressure also that the myth of the relationship between substances and creativity, the pressure that puts on them, as it's been said on this platform, generally speaking, within the entertainment space, practitioners erroneously believe that there's a direct relationship between getting high and being able to produce award-winning stuff or stuff that will go viral. That's a myth, because research, science has proven that there is absolutely nothing like that. It doesn't exist. But there is that narrative, and it's strong, and it continues to get driven. People say, oh, if I get high, I need to vibe. I need to get into the studio to create this vibe or produce this vibe, and there must be a substance in the system to assist me to deliver on that. So there has to be greater attention going forward, paid to the individual. Yes. Let me also say that research has established that people in the entertainment space all over the world, not peculiar to Nigeria, have a much higher propensity to abuse substances than regular people. So yes, it's a societal problem, but those persons who are creatives usually would have a greater predisposition to abusing substance. So if they struggle with substance abuse in their individual lives, it only follows that their art would mirror their private lives. And now that you have unregulated media platforms that they drive themselves, and they have greater numbers than some established media platforms combined, they can just keep funneling this wrong portrayals that keep influencing young impressionable people to get into these practices.
I like your views on the democratization of access, which is why I'd like to go to Edo. I have traveled across the continent and also, fortunately, outside of the continent. And before we talk about Nigerian music, Nollywood has taken Nigeria far and wide. And unfortunately, I have been with friends in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in Namibia, and they have some assumptions about Nigeria that I wish that they didn't have. Assumptions that came from being very interested and paying attention to Nollywood. So Ini, I'm glad that we have someone like you in the house. You're not just an actress, you're also a force. You're a cultural leader in your own right. What is not, and Bada has already nuanced this particular aspect in terms of how, even if Nollywood doesn't do this or does that, people have their own access. But I also know that Nollywood as a system, as a culture, has a way to manage and regulate its members, even outside of the movie. So what is Nollywood specifically doing as a community to ensure that these impressionable young people all over the world, and with respect to Nigeria, all over the country, are getting to learn the right things from cultural leaders like yourself and the space generally?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I asked to start an already existing protocol. So for Nollywood, I mean, I feel like first of all, what we do as an industry is we tell our stories. We tell the African story. We tell stories. Through Nollywood, we've been able to reshape the image of Africa, that people actually, especially people in diaspora, get to really understand a lot of things about Africa, Nigeria as a country, and as a people through our films. So I feel like movies are also a very strong platform to relate this kind of social message and all that. So for me, I would think that the content of our stories would have to start to reflect these subjects, especially. Sorry?
She was corroborating you. You can continue.
No, okay, go for it.
DAkore is ready. Okay, hi. So I think that through films, we should be able to change the narrative of, what the vices should be and what shouldn't be. And for me, I like to think that Censors Board has a huge role to play in this, because if you're telling a story that has to do with drug-related, a drug-related story, maybe someone who's a successful person or who's a drug addict or something like that, and there has to be a certain resolve for people to understand that, look, if you get into this lifestyle, this is what you're likely to get at the end of the day. I think that most times what the young people see, they see the glamour part of this whole, this whole process. They think, oh, I need to be high to be able to perform, because this is probably what they see on TV or what they see on social media. But what they don't really get to see is the adverse effects of these drugs and how damaging these things can actually be to us as a people, as young people. The fact that a lot of people have, you could lose your life, you could lose a very bright future. Some of them, I've seen people who have very strong minds that have just been ruined just by addiction. And I think that we need to begin to highlight the adverse effects of these substances on our people, on the people, on young people, on the industry. And, and the major thing is that a lot of these young people, what they see is what they try to emulate. So it brings us back to social media. It brings us back to our films, the content of our movies, the content of our songs, and what these people see. I think the government also has a huge role to play in this, because if we start to make sure that our films must get a certain resolve, if you're talking about drugs or you're talking about any kind of socially ill story, there has to be a result that shows that, look, this is where you will end up. If you do this, it never ends up, you would either damage your life or you would ruin your future or something. These people don't really get to see this, and all they see is the glamorous part of it. Like the fact that these celebrities are able to make it look like this is what you need to do to be hip, this is what you need to do to be among, to feel accepted, within a certain social space. And what they don't get to see is how, in the long run, what is the effect these substances can have on you as a person. So I think we need to begin to highlight the effect of these things, of these drugs or this lifestyle, so people can learn, because a lot of them don't even know. They feel, they don't even know that, these things, sometimes some people have loss of memory. There's a whole lot of things that comes with drug abuse, but we don't get to really hear about the adverse effects of these drugs. Maybe see pictures or see videos of people who have, so some time ago, I used to go with some, religious leaders who go to the slums where you have some really young, very bright people, but they're very young, but they're in the slums and all they do is drug from morning till the next morning. And first of all, their health is nothing to write home about. There's no future, there's no hope for anything, and that's all that they are enveloped. Their parents are doing the same thing, the siblings are doing the same thing, so it becomes a norm for them. And because you turn on the TV, that's what they're seeing. They go to social media, all the big celebrities, that's what they're doing. So it looks like it's the new norm, and it's a cool thing to do. You need to do that to belong. So I don't know if it has to do with the government or with, like DAkore was saying, the mental institution or something. We need to have that level of sensitization for people. From secondary school to universities, we need to start talking about the adverse effects of drugs on the young people, on this generation particularly. I've been to parties. I went to a party some time ago where, they brought cannabis in trays, and these were like very young girls from very reputable universities, ages like 20 to 25. It was in a tray. It was like normal. They just bring it in a tray, and people were picking 3, 4, 5, and it just felt very normal. And most of them are doing this thing because they feel like that is what probably they think I may be doing the same thing, or everybody else is doing it, so why don't we all just do it? But what they don't see is the adverse effects. I think that we need to start that conversation about the damages and the effect of these drugs on in the lives of the young people. I feel like if we take it from there and probably start a bit of censoring of what they see on social media, because this is the major problem. This is what is most for me, I think in Nigeria presently, it's playing a very major role in damaging the mindsets of these people. It's what they see. They feel that it's cool, and so everybody's doing it.
Completely. And also interesting that you mentioned social media, and you also did mention government, and it's such a very, very powerful panel. And we have government representation in the House. The Minister of Youth and Sports joined us during the conversation. I'd like for him to share perspectives from the things he's heard, also from his presentation that he couldn't make. Is the Minister still online? Minister,
yes,
Mr. Sunday Dare. Thank you, sir.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'd like to hear your perspective of what you've heard so far. There's a lot of questions and comments going to the direction of government.
Well, thank you so much. And sorry, I'm joining a bit late because I've been busy. The former governor of Oyo State died yesterday.
That's your state.
So Governor Jimabi, who's now late, so we've been busy with logistics to move to Ibadan. I had a little bit, particularly your last few comments, but I had the entirety of what Inedo just said and our perspective. But I think that the issue of drug abuse amongst our youth, unfortunately, I think we've woken up a bit late to really making it an agenda item, even as a government. When you look at America and the UK, you look at government response to it, the level of awareness, the laws and the enforcement of certain laws to, in a deliberate way, protect the youth, institutional approach and support is what has been largely missing on our part. And I think we're almost 10 years late in starting. But that notwithstanding, we have to play catch up, but also we must do it the right way. And I think that I believe very strongly that we have to look at our laws. Just as we're dealing with the incidents of rape and gender-based violence, and we're tightening our laws, the Child Acts law, etc., we should also, in a deliberate way, look at the laws we have right now that not only criminalizes the illicit use of these drugs, but also the source, the people that produce them, the people that sell them to underage kids. And also, you must not take your eyes off the pharmaceuticals, because several of these chemists, they call them chemists, and even reputable pharmacies also make this available. There is a demand, but also, what about the supply? We must break the supply chain. As the youth minister, there's also the impact of the economy. Most of our youth that eventually go on to drugs, it's also because of being idle, because they are not able to advance their careers, because they're jobless, so they get into other vices. You know, depression is on the increase in our country. We don't have a system, a government system that elevates counseling and treatment of depression. For us, depression is just, we just read it in papers. In America, the budget to treat people with depression, when you look at the figures, is appalling. There's so many of our youth that are depressed, and then they easily fall into the drug trap. So my 3 points are that we need an institutional approach that will have the cooperation of both the public and the private sector. We also need to look at those that produce products. Even some of the drinks we take, that's where the drug addiction starts. When the bottle of beer is no longer able to take you to that level, you start to look for other substances. And then we need to also nip in the bud the supply. We need to break that supply chain. But we need laws that will criminalize either the supply, the selling of these drugs to our children. Inedo touched largely on the need to have education. Just as we're saying, we should have some level of sex education from the primary school. Once these kids are 6, 7 years old, you can segment what you teach them. But in the case of drug abuse, you can even go the whole hog. Unlike sex education, you want to serialize the awareness and education. In this case, in a deliberate way, we must institutionalize that process of education, right from primary school all through secondary school, in a consistent way that is applicable, and they can see the dangers of drug abuse and see the flip side of it, that if you remain clean, you can easily get a job. If you remain clean, you can build a career. If you remain clean, you can build family, you can earn a good reputation, you can become a mentor. We must have a system that rewards good behavior. That's it. And a system that punishes to the maximum bad behavior. The youth have a responsibility too, just as the government. So it's a two-way, it's a partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. That's a very important take. It always helps when we hear from the right people, whether cultural influencers, whether from the platform people like Bada, And now we actually, as a panel, got it right to where a lot of panels miss it, which is to hear directly from those that have been there, experienced it, and can share what they learned. So we have Sandra Mim in the house. Before Sandra speaks, I'd like for us to watch a video that give a perspective to what she's going to say to us. Is the video ready?
Yes, the video will play just now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you just saw, Sandra used to be a person living with substance use disorder. She's been recovering for a year now. And Sandra, I'd like to hear your motivation for stopping and how far things are going right now. Hello, Sandra, are you there? Can you please unmute Sandra? Okay, she's no longer on the platform.
Yes, JJ, it appears that we lost Sandra. Maybe it's a connectivity issue.
Okay, no problem. I'll just go straight to, if Sandra, please let me know when Sandra comes in or if she comes in. I'll go to the foundation, the Mtn Foundation who brought us together. What more can you do? What more can, especially talking about first-time users, what more can we do to prevent new users of drugs, apart from what is already being done to help reduce and help work with those that are already currently living with the substance and the disorder? What can we do to prevent a situation where we don't have more new users?
Thank you very much, JJ, for that. A lot has been said. You know, the minister practically answered that question. This is one of the things that can be done, you know, more frequently, what we're here doing today. Where there are conversations, you know, open conversations on various platforms that talk to the importance of not getting into, you know, drug abuse. The MTN chairman said it is easier to keep off drugs than to stay off, you know, drugs. So the more we engage, you know, in advocacy activities that speak to the ills of engaging in substance abuse, I think we're beginning to get it, you know, back. The next thing for us, you know, is curriculum. The minister alluded to that. Curriculum is very, very important. Now, not only curriculum in school curriculum, we need to look at it. He's talked about, you know, laying it bare for the children and letting them know, you know, sharing, using real life examples of people that have gone that path and where it led to. It helps, but not only curriculum in the school, but the curriculum also at home. Because I'm one person who believes, I have 3 daughters, and I believe so much in the power of the family, you know, as the basic unit of society. How do we engage at home? What are the values that we hold as, you know, different families? Do we have a vision? Do we have values that we're practically swung to, you know, and we live through? So those are some of the things. Reviewing the curriculum, the minister has talked about breaking the chain of supply. I totally, you know, agree with that. And I think the frequency of engagement is also key. leveraging faith-based platforms. You know, people go to church, go to mosques. What are we being taught in those places? You know, it's very important that using faith-based platforms, we begin to disseminate, you know, this message of saying no to drugs. I'll tell you something. I wrote a book last year titled The Alphabets of Leadership for Young Minds. 2 things in that book: the power of no, you know, and the power of choice. Those are the things we need to push out. Of course, I've talked about the private, you know, things that the citizens can do. Government is a big player in this. The minister has said that. A lot of people have also said that. Across all, government is bigger than all of us. The minister alluded to the fact that we're playing catch up. But even though it's a catch up game, how do we begin to use policy, you know, to create the future that we desire as, you know, a country? Very, very important. So that is my submission.
Thank you very much. Sandra has joined us again.
I've sent the link to you now. I've sent it.
Sandra, I would like to hear from you. You've been very brave, and 1 year ever since. Scientifically, that means that you've actually crossed the line. I'd like to hear your motivation, and, you know, some other people that might actually be affected could hear from you and be inspired. Can you please unmute her? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to first of all thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to come on here and actually speak and tell my story, like, to people who may be listening and who may be going through what I actually did go through in my life. So I did post up a video, and it's accrued a little bit of audience, and people were inspired by it. And that was the main reason that I posted it in the first place, because I had a very bad experience with drugs and substance use disorder, as we refer to it here. So, and I actually made promises to God and to my family and to myself that if I was liberated from that time in my life, I would actually use any voice that I could to inspire any and everybody that was listening or that could hear me. Because just by posting that video that I posted, I have had over 100 people DMing me and asking me, how did I do it? They're actually in this kind of situation and they're trying to change and they don't have any help whatsoever. Just asking me for advice on how I went about my journey. So, and people telling me how inspired they are. And it's just really cool to see, because in this time, we don't really have the positive message, especially about drugs and substance abuse, because it's like, it's being promoted instead of being advocated against. Like, we have on TV, we have creatives, young people who actually see these drugs being used online, and it could be from peer pressure, it could be from just feeling like drugs like is the new cool because of how we see it and how, oh, you get like high or you get inspiration from drugs. But it's actually not the case, because I am actually also a dancer, a student, and amongst other things, and I was led to believe that, okay, maybe using these drugs would enhance my performance or would help me perform better. And I came to realize that it was not the case at all. It's just like all in your brain. It's just what other people have told you and what you actually think that, yes, it will make me perform better. But it's been a year since I've been on this, and I'm still able to speak to people. I'm still able to dance. I'm still able to venture into whatever endeavors that I want to venture into. And actually how my journey started, it was just from occasionally doing these substances to being in that kind of environment with my friends or, you know, close people that actually do that. And I just like got pressured into doing it more and more and more. And at a time it was like I was like deep in it, but through the grace of God and through support and through positivity and actually taking time for myself to steer away from, like, for 3 months I was able to steer away from social media, steer away from my phone, steer away from people who I felt like pressured me unknowingly into doing this. So after steering away for a couple of months, 3 or 4 months, I was able to find myself, find a relationship with God, find, you know, what actually drove me, what I wanted my life to be. Because the complications people get from these drugs, they don't tell you, but you eventually find yourself maybe hallucinating or being so crazed up that you don't even know your surroundings, falling asleep in random places, and you don't know, you just feel high and you're happy, but you don't know that in the long run. And for people that who actually don't have all these complications, in the long run it's going to affect you health-wise. I started thinking about it like, I don't want to be 50 or 40 years old and married to somebody and I have to lose my life, or my children have to lose me because I did some things in my past that maybe gives you kidney failure or liver problems or something like that. So I just had to realize it and actually steer clear of it. It was actually hard. It was not an easy journey for me, but I was able to find that inner strength. But then there are other people who don't really have that strength because of where they are, maybe their surroundings or anything like that. So I feel like in this country especially, we don't have enough people advocating for rehabilitation centers or maybe drug abuse knowledge in schools or just on social media or in the television. Because most people, when you say, oh, I'm going for therapy or I'm going to rehab, people look at you like, what are you doing? Or you can't stop it by yourself. But it's not what it's about. It's actually a journey, and I'm still on that journey.
Yeah.
Just because I've been clean for a year doesn't mean that I can't, and I won't, but it doesn't mean that you can't still relapse back into that place you were. So that's something I'm constantly working on, trying to go 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 10 years without venturing back or relapsing back into what I'm staying away from. So
thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. You're a role model. You're an inspiration, and more than anything else, you're a very, very brave person. And something that rings true across the Sunday mentioned it, Dave Jones mentioned it, Sandra just mentioned it, the assumption that you need drugs to spice your creativity. I think that has been, more than anything else been said here, that's not true. I'd like to come back to Dr. Oshodi, because this is a very important question. And I also like to say that if I get to ask you questions in this round, please just try and keep it as short as possible because we need to close. What's the first point of call if one notices a sign of drug abuse from a loved one or somebody that you might be interested in? Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all the contributors so far. It's really been helpful. Well, first of all, we need to realize that there are mental health services in this country. Though they're not enough, I must say. We have over 180, psychiatrists for 180 million people. That's like one psychiatrist for 1 million people. That tells us that we do not have enough manpower. But there are experts, there are institutions, there are non-governmental organizations that are doing a lot of amazing work. They're teaching hospitals, there are neuropsychiatric facilities, and all these centers provide services at different levels with different intensities, depending on the needs, specific needs of the individual. So what do you do when you suspect someone has a drug abuse problem? The first thing is to have a high index of suspicion. And I like the fact that a lot of the contributors have said that you must be aware. You must awareness. What does it look like? The individual starts changing the way they dress. They start looking unkempt. They start behaving drowsy all the time, or they're acting like they're seeing unseen people, talking to people they can't see, or they're aggressive. Remember when I spoke about the different drugs of abuse, there are different ways it will manifest based on that substance of abuse. And also, the other thing we need to also realize is there are certain individuals that are a bit more vulnerable. I hope we'll get back to that. If we don't, I just need to throw that in there. There are certain risk factors. I'm sorry. Sorry?
No, we won't get back to that because of time.
Because of time, exactly.
Yes.
So let me just touch on, there's certain risk factors. There's certain individuals that, without no fault of theirs, they're already at risk. First of all, their adolescent's brain doesn't fully develop till their early 20s, and we need to get that. That means that the brain is evolving. The decision-making portion of the brain that lets you know that it's enough, do the right thing, it's going to evolve into the mid-20s. So you have an 18-year-old as big as whatever, but they are not able to control that drive for pleasure with the drive to do the right thing that you and I are able to do. Understanding that alone would make us utilize evidence-based interventions to address this problem. Prevention is the key. I'm sorry, time won't permit us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor. I need to take this question, Dokun. So I'm a person living with substance abuse disorder. In specific terms, in bullet points, what can I do to fix up? Dokun. Is Dokun still there? Can you please quickly unmute him? I want to catch his answers because a lot of young people are watching right now. It would be good to have.
You see, I think the first important thing to do is to have self-awareness that I have a problem. And then when the person has, there are centers, for instance, in our center, if you come to us and say, look, you have an issue, you would like to be helped. First of all, the self-awareness is one of the things we like. And then the willingness to want to go through the program. And then they come and then we talk to them. We tell them this is something you can stop. And that's why I like what Sandra has done. But we also need to be careful with someone like Sandra so that we don't expose that. The other thing is when these people come, is there family support? Is there any form of support to help them through the challenge? And when they finish, that is why one of the things we said, as Dr. Shiji just said, prevention is the first step, treatment and rehab is the second, and aftercare is very, very important. If there's stigmatization, the person will fall back to drug. The thing is, when people have they know that, many of them know they have issues, but they don't know where to go to. From the UNODC report, they said is out of 7 problematic users, only 1 find a place to get treatment. And many of them, when they go for the treatment, is not the appropriate treatment. So, but if they come, we are faith-based. And so we admit for a year, the person goes through the program, and then thereafter we try to rehabilitate them back to get them back to the family, fix them. In the process of the rehabilitation, we get in touch with families, either the church or whoever has brought them. And then so that they learn something from us, maybe in the skill acquisition center, then they can then progress to go start their own, or some go back to school, or some go back to the job they've left behind.
Thank you, Dokun. I need to stop you there because I want to capture, we don't have time and I need to capture order.
No. Okay.
So I need to also emphasize what Drug Help Net is doing as a network. It's a network of counselors providing help, especially over the phone assistance. So Drug Help Net, people should pay attention to that. Along with also CAMAD, Dokun's CAMAD. I got a question from Chikezie amongst our viewers, and this is for Bada. Bada, you did mention that these artists, these superstars have their own platforms now, so the space is democratized. Are there still tools available to you to, I don't want to use the word ban because I hate the word ban, to a disincentive towards them doing videos like that and posting them even on their own platforms? Please, as short as possible.
I think education is key, and we hold ourselves to very high standards, and we believe that there's a greater responsibility that we need to step up to in partnership with organizations like the Mtn Foundation. to get these very key stakeholders, just by the sheer influence that they wield, involved. When we do that, you will find that a lot of them actually do need help themselves. And in helping them, we help the larger majority of young, impressionable people that are following them. We need to destigmatize coming out and speaking. If one entertainer would come out and own up to having challenges with drugs and overcoming it, you'll be amazed at the positive influence the sweeping positive influence that could potentially have on millions of people that look up to them and idolize them. So MTV-based Viacom CBS is very, very particular about getting into partnerships that afford us the opportunity to speak to these persons and use them as the conduit through which this very important, powerful messaging can get to the millions of people that adore them.
Thank you, Bada. And it also helps that MTV Base is one of the partners for this particular conversation. It helps to add that. And I'd like for Oliver Stopper to, just very little to tell us about what Drug Help Net is doing, as short as possible. A lot of people are listening and they could use some phone assistance right now. Oliver.
Yes, I will try. So Drug Help Net is an initiative that was launched 2 months ago. It brings together by now 129 professional drug counselors. Most of them have actually been trained by UNODC, and they provide over-the-phone counseling to drug users. And the fantastic thing about it is, first of all, it's free. Secondly, you can approach it anonymously. You can do that from your home, so you don't need to go anywhere. And you can do that well beyond the normal opening hours of drop-in centers. So it is really filling a gap that was existing in Nigeria until this day. The phone numbers are all available on our website. And I would really like to, and through you, to encourage your users, if you have a drug issue, or you know somebody who has a drug issue, or a family member of somebody who has a drug issue, call that number. You will get help. These people are really highly trained, and they are already have provided help to more than 1,000 drug users until today.
Thank you very much, Oliver. We're closing very, very soon. I'm going to throw a question to DAkore, but while I do that, can everybody please pay attention? Please look into your camera. We're about to take pictures for newspapers and the MTVs and the like. So please, I see Bada in his beautiful suit. Thank you. DAkore, where does this is from the audience, where does the assumption that you need, please keep posing. Where does the assumption that you need drugs to perform as an artist, as a creative person, where does it come from? Please try and keep it as short as possible.
Where does it come from? I think maybe from the media, maybe from other films. The portrayal of an artist in his process generally tends to show some form of abuse, either alcohol or cocaine. I think that's a very, very powerful place that it could have come from. And then, of course, when you see it, then, and people believe what they see. So they see that and they just assume that is. And then I think some artists as well believe that, and then, further, confirm it. And I think something that I've really learned from this whole conversation, it also boils down to us as artists being responsible to really watch what we post, watch what we say, watch how we think. Sorry, that's my mom. Yeah. So we need to really be critical about how we conduct ourselves, because people are watching, and we have so much more power now than we did when we first started out. So we have to be very responsible with how we portray our own movies and the roles that we select even.
Thank you.
The music that we play, the music we make. Are we playing instead of, teaching and showing a different way of doing things?
Thank you very much, DAkore.
Yeah.
I agree completely. Does the minister have anything to add? I'm about to close.
Well, just a few words. I think there's a need to have a coalition. Yes. The private sector and the public sector, government and Nollywood and the creative industry, we need to build a coalition. And I think if we have that coalition, that a platform with a common agenda, then we can all read from the same script. As an actress, Nollywood knows what it needs to do, like DAkore said. In terms of policy, we can work with them to design a policy that works. I can bring in a couple of other ministers, Women Affairs, the AGF, we draft policies, we make sure we pass that through the FEC, and then we can get the support we need. And I think that maybe flowing from this, what I will take away is I will try through my youth department to reach out to a number of strategic partners with which we can work together on a common agenda, and then divvy up what our roles and responsibilities will be. And then from time to time, we can run a check to say, in 6 months, in 1 year, how have you achieved?
I agree completely. And I also know that some of those strategic partners are already some of the people we have on this platform. And my final question will go to Iniedo. So I want to be a superstar, Nollywood and through music. How much drugs do I need to be a superstar? Iniedo.
That's funny.
Is Iniedo there?
She's there, but she's muted. Yeah,
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I want to be a superstar. Do I need drugs to be a superstar?
Yeah, you don't need, you see, especially for actors, you can't even afford to not be sane in your job. All right, because it's about it's a mental thing. It's not like music that the acting is more mental. So you have to be alert. I don't even see how being on drugs and acting really would work hand in hand. You would just be a nuisance, you wouldn't necessarily be able to carry through your role. So it's never been a plus to be high, to be able to do well in films. I know it may work differently in other entertainment sector, but for acting, I don't see how you need to be very mentally alert. I think because you have to read the lines, you have to say the lines the way that they are. I mean, you're not just alone on set. You need to take directions, and so if you're not focused, if you're not stable, you may just make a complete mess of it. So I think it would work against you as an actor as opposed to working for you.
Thank you. So that means no chance for me to combine music and to combine acting and drugs. I also know for music, there's been a lot of consequences for those that try to do both. We don't need to mention names, but you can just think about music and drugs and you kind of see such a big history of unnecessary deaths, ODing, and career disappearing. On that note, I'd like to say, look, this has been such an enriching panel, even if I say so myself as the moderator, primarily because everyone came and dropped it and killed it, and also because we have nuances, we have ideas, perspectives from across different specters of society. I'd like to thank you, the Prince himself, the chairman of the foundation, Prince Julius Adelusi Adelui, for joining us. I'd like to thank Dr. Odun Ayosonya for joining us. I'd like to thank Bada Akintunde Johnson from MTV Base, Dr. Yewande Oshodi for joining us, Oliver Stolper from the UNDOC, of course, the minister himself, Mr. Sunday Dare, the Minister of Youth and Sports, DAkore, Egbuson Akonde, Ini Edo, Sandra. I think that's about everyone. And of course, now I'm going to, maybe I should be thanking the chairman himself, Business Day, Frank, but I'm going to hand over to him so he can thank himself and then thank everyone. Before then, please, one final picture. So look into the camera. Let's take a final picture and then Frank will take it over from me. Thank you. I had a great time. God bless.
JJ, thank you ever so much. We really appreciate the fantastic work that you have done. I must, at this point, thank our Honorable Minister, Sunny Dare. It looks like my blackmail worked. We are happy to have had you despite your very, very busy schedule. I won't let out the secret, but I am happy that it worked. We appreciate you. I mean, the point that you have made is quite germane. We need a private-public sector coalition that involves Nollywood as well. And I must thank the panelists, especially our very, very, big stars that joined us for the sense of responsibility that they have displayed and demonstrated. That acceptance that they themselves also have a responsibility, given that now they are also role models to millions of Nigerians. And finally, let me thank our chairman, the chairman of Mtn Foundation, Prince Adeluyi. I already said I have followed him over a long period of time, a man for whom I have the highest of regard. We're grateful that you joined us. This conversation has to continue. The advocacy has to continue. The message has to go out there constantly that to succeed, you do not need drugs. In fact, that drugs will destroy you and destroy your career. That message must constantly be put up there. And I think the media has a responsibility to ensure that we continually focus on that. The parents as well, a key role, something that was elaborated on by panelist Dr. Yewande Oshodi. I mean, I think that is critical. I mean, parents have a huge role. We cannot just outsource, bringing up our children to schools and to nannies and to other things. We don't have any more time. MTN is brightening the day. Clearly, better knowledge will do a great deal for better mental health, and that is what we have learned today. And as soon as possible, in whatever ways we can, we must begin to make the positive change that is required. As our minister says, this is a major national mental health challenge, and it's our responsibility together to resolve it so that we can save our future. Once again, I thank you all. Do have a great weekend, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you
so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.